I'm liking this. It's really good.
I've had so many shifts going on here. Whilst you two have been, sharing your bits as well. Do you think, Brie, as well, that love is something that's evolving, so that as we go through life, we get those opportunities to, I guess, either choose to respond in fear,
and we are
love.
We also say, I think I heard it from somewhere, that and that also changed. So now how I look at it, I think that's why it changed me. So I saw a post the other day, or like a video, the lady said that, by the way, you don't have to learn unconditional love, because the way you are unconditional love, the thing that we all need to do is removing the obstacles to let that through. It's already within you, because everything is already within us. We're born with it. We don't born all those trauma things that we piled things on, that those orphan parts. And basically in life, our job is to remove and then to shine that unconditional love. So it's all there. We're just blocking it because we don't want to be seen for who we really are, because it's something that we think it's not accepted, or it's something that is, I used to think it's ugly, but it's not. It's the most beautiful thing. And that is basically love, because we are all.
I love that, because it reminds me of my first spiritual book that I read, The Untethered Soul, Michael Singer.
Yeah.
And in that, he talks about sometimes life, we've been through like a tough time and we've got all these thorns stuck within us. And what we do is we build up a protective layer around ourselves to stop ourselves from getting hurt by the thorns that are within us. And every time we get a little nudge, because the thorns are still stuck within us, it hurts us. And rather than removing the thorns, we build up a layer around the thorns. And what would be easier would actually just to remove those blocks. Yeah. And I think, I was just thinking about the gym. We have so many different characters here.
I know.
And members, and so many opportunities. I've started looking at it in a different light. These are just opportunities to show unconditional love, either through physical actions, speech, or even just inwardly, just to keep your heart open and not to put up a block. And for me, the characters that come through this gym have shown me where my thorns are, because someone will come along and it'll be like, oh, that feels a bit, I've got a bad energy there. And then I'm like, no, that's within me. That they've just shown me where my thorn is, and I can perform an energetic operation on myself to remove that thorn.
Yeah.
And so then when and honestly, I've noticed the interaction just the next day, it's totally different. So I meditate on any energies that I felt in the day just gone, and then I'll have a nice sleep, wake up the next day, and honestly, the gym is totally different. Those same people have a different aura about them, a different glow, and all I've done is change my perception, and they've helped me remove that thorn. So
it's so good. It's so interesting that you mentioned this, that the way that a lot of people ask me, like, because I didn't have a good relationship with my parents because of like the way that I was, and the way that I was like holding on, well, hurting what we were, suffering through life, because we all do. Sometimes we don't even realize that we just like suffering through life, and then basically like the hurt people analogy. And we didn't realize that how much hurt that we are all carrying. And obviously, like, I went away, and then I sort of like tapped into it and cleared it out, and removed, like, we basically, like the way that you mentioned, like we had a thorn right here, and instead of removing that, we were building up, like we were centered our life around that. And we created it as a center, which meant that we started like making it bigger, which affected our relationship, which affected our friendships, which affected our whole family, and basically not just affected it, but infected it. And I went away and I removed that. And I was like, I cannot really hold on to that anymore. And because I believe what I experienced was, we are, instead of, and this is what I do as well, I think that you do as well, I learned to sit with it. And I also, when it comes to feeling something from other people, what I used to do was telling people that please don't do that because it bothers me. But then I realized when it came to the point, I was like, oh, but we mirror each other. So whatever is bothering me, it triggers me, which means that you mirror me and I mirror you. So it's not just you, but it's also me. And when that hit, I did the same thing. I'm not telling people to do different things or like trying to change them in a way, but I do that. Okay, so that really bothers me. Why does it bother me? Let's sit with it and let's just think about it. Let's just think about my behavior pattern and just like, let's just like go deep within. And I call it mirroring. So through mirroring exercises, I receive those things. It doesn't mean that I take on the energy. I just receive the alerts of like where, what, how. And just like what you did, is like I shift things. I don't change, but I shift things in me. And then I go back and see whether I shifted it right. Because obviously if you meet again and then it doesn't have that friction anymore, that means that you remove something, but you also help the other person to remove that or to transform that into a good way. And this is how I made a good relationship with my parents. I shared my experience rather than telling them that, listen, it really bothers me. So when it just only comes with like to confrontations, if there's a friction or there's a confrontation which like heats up, like yesterday with my mom, that was like we wanted to so much talk our truth, and then we frictioned a little bit, and then a little bit like fire in between, like, and I just walked away. And she knows she didn't come after me. We just cooled down. We like said that, okay, that's fine. And then I came back and she was like, could you just tell me that what I said that was triggering you? I was like, you didn't say anything. It was, I think it was such a big, it was both of us. It was trying to, and then we talked about it and she was like, so you didn't say anything bad? I was like, no, you didn't say anything bad. I just couldn't stay there. And she was like, yeah, me neither. That's why I left you there. I was like, perfect. But that's a really, I believe those are things, because if I start saying that, oh yeah, you did this, you did that, but I already knew she didn't do anything. I was just triggered, and so was she. And that's where we stop hurting people, when we just take responsibility of like, it was not you, it was both of us standing on our grounds, but it made us stronger rather than made us both like weaker in a certain way. So I believe that what you said is like mirroring it. I think it's so important that when something happens, we learn to sit with it and acknowledge and being aware that it's just as much us than the other person, and pointing fingers is not going to solve the problem, rather than change it within you or transform it within you, because that's going to just ripple effect outside of you. And then when you come back to the same source, you're like, oh, everything changed. I wonder what happened.
Going back to pointing fingers, when you point a finger, you've got more pointing back at yourself.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. It's
and
like,
you can't lick your own elbow.
Yeah. That's so true. That's so true.
Unless you're double jointed.
Yeah.
We try.
Sorry, I just had to bring some light in, some fun into that. But
Yeah, exactly.
that was one thing I learned before I actually met my husband, was that when you point a finger at somebody, there's more fingers pointing back at yourself. So you should look at yourself before you start pointing fingers.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, I think it's really, I mean, now I feel it's empowering to go within, but at the time when you don't have those skills, you like, oh, not me, because I don't even know like how to describe this, but I think it's just like, we don't like to disappoint people, so we don't want to take the fault, but it's not really taking the fault, it's just taking responsibility for your own action and for your own self and for your own thing. So the pointing finger. I used to point fingers when I was like kid. I was like, yeah, it was a teacher, it was a customer, it was the other teacher, and never took responsibility for anything. And it showed in life, obviously, like for me, definitely. And I think we all do that, but it's not even like making you a bad person. It's just whether you learn from those and stop pointing fingers after a while and realize that, oh, does it actually like have any good effect on me or on others, or it's just basically destroying my life constantly and not really creating any change.